1699, for the first time. It appeared to his critics that he was on his way to meet his pirate partner Kidd, who had just reached Delaware Bay and was heading north. Bellomont later explained that he wrote Kidd a letter that purposely did not threaten his arrest, as he didn't want to scare Kidd away. Joseph Emmett, a New York lawyer whose specialty was admiralty cases, advised Bellomont that Kidd had treasure aboard and had left treasure behind in the Caribbean. Emmett also delivered 2 passes granted by the French that Kidd had taken from the Moorish ships he captured. These documents were evidence that the act of capturing those ships, at least, was not piracy. Had these passes made it to Kidd's trial, he might have been acquitted. But somehow Bellomont, or another backer of the voyage, allowed the passes to disappear. 12. While he was conspiring to have Kidd convicted, Bellomont sent under a black flag 65 men to get a statement from the pirate. They met with Kidd off Block Island. Afterward, Kidd seemed confident he could still trust Bellomont. He set sail for a tiny island off the coast of eastern Long Island called Gardiners Island. He unloaded 3 or 4 small boats of booty, and then sent for John Gardiner, in whose care Kidd placed a chest for Bellomont. Gardiner's area of eastern Long Island was one of the 2 favorite pirate places to anchor in summer. The other was across the mouth of Long Island Sound, on the islands between Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. Both were locales where ships, both pirate and merchant, could rendezvous to trade and exchange cargo and supplies. It was an illegal floating market at times. The mouth of Buzzards Bay was also passed by ships cruising between New York and Boston, but docking a ship there would mean drawing the attention of the Navy. As Kidd sailed around the eastern end of Long Island, he dropped treasure in various places. One stash was delivered to an old pirate by the name of Thomas Paine, who lived on Connecticut Island off Rhode Island. When the governor of Rhode Island got wind of the story, he searched Paine's house, but the gold was not there. It may have already been moved back to Gardiner's Island, but proof against the Gardiner family was not to be found. Kidd's plan was to hedge his bets. If he hid enough treasure before meeting the authorities, it would be something to use in striking a bargain. As Kidd's real history grew into legend, people would tell tales of him dropping his treasure as far north as Nova Scotia and as far east as the South China Sea. But it's more likely that what he did not leave in the Caribbean he hid around Long Island Sound. Kidd was also attempting to deftly play the cards he was dealt. He knew after meeting with Emmett that the situation was vastly different, since he had left New York. The British were cracking down on piracy, the ships returning to New York were being seized, and the ship's captains and crews were being hunted and arrested. Kidd had put his partners Bellomont and Livingston in a very complicated position. Bellomont, in fact, had much to gain either as Kidd's friend, or as the 66 piracy, a merry and a short-life arresting officer of the court. Both scenarios allowed him to be rewarded either financially or in reputation. Not having all the treasure available for confiscation was one of the strategies Kidd employed. The temptation to have more would serve as an inducement for Kidd's apprehensive partner. Kidd's second play was delivering to Lord Bellomont's wife an enameled box with 4 jewels. He hoped it might tip the scale and make Bellomont back his partner. But Bellomont did the math, allowing that Kidd's charges might be false and pardoning him, and thereby keeping his legitimate share could equal £1,000. But seizing Kidd and claiming his legitimate share as arresting governor gave him £13,000. Bellomont's advisers warned him not to go against the British East India Company and the powers the company represented. Thus Bellomont decided against his one-time partner. Kidd was to be arrested. The other partner, Robert Livingston, was dismayed by Bellomont's decision. He stood to gain all if Kidd was pardoned, and nothing if Kidd was arrested. In fact, Livingston had posted a bond guaranteeing Kidd's behavior. Bellomont alleged that Livingston threatened him, saying that Livingston would take reimbursement from Kidd's treasure if Bellomont didn't return the bond. Did Bellomont make up this accusation to distance himself from the crime? Or, as Bellomont might have feared, were Kidd and Livingston, brother Scots, involved in a conspiracy against him? Both Bellomont and Livingston had to bear the weight of public opinion. In America the arrest was an exciting event. In England it was a political event as well. The Tory party, closely tied to the British East India Company, wanted Kidd convicted. The Whigs, several of whom were backers of Kidd's voyage, were in a corner. In the end, all but Kidd got their way. At the trial, the book listing the owners of Kidd's ship, his partners, and his instructions was missing. So were the vital passes obtained from the Moorish ships, which might have acquitted him. The passes were discovered 200 years later in London Records Office. The letter from Bellomont to Kidd was also missing. There were only 2 eyewitnesses against Kidd: Robert Braddon under a black flag 67 and Joseph Palmer. Both were military deserters who turned pirate. Today an American lawyer might point out that such criminals may not be credible witnesses, as they are not men of reputation, and they were very obviously testifying against Kidd for their own reprieve. Their pardons came days after Kidd's conviction. It appears that a deal had been struck, one that convenienced all except William Kidd. Kidd was the scapegoat, and, as such, was hanged. Livingston was cleared of all charges. Bellomont was enriched for his role in arresting Kidd. The other Whig partners were unsullied by what might have been a scandal, although they lost their stake in the ship, and any proceeds they might have expected. For England and the ruling class, the bottom line was that Tory shipping was safe from Whig upstarts. Livingston made out better than he thought. He received his bond back, although remarkably he was forced to pay off fellow partner Robert Blackham for his stake in the venture. The members of Captain Kidd's crew were mostly pardoned, and some died in jail. Kidd's wife, Sarah Bradley Cox Orchard, was jailed and her house seized on Bellomont's order. Ort was known to have some of Kidd's loot, but it was never found. She was eventually released, and married a 4th time. Those who had received the treasure were targeted by Bellomont, who stood to gain a share of the recovered valuables. The greatest amount of treasure was on guard in this part of Long Island. Threatened with an enemy landing on his tiny kingdom, John Gardner presented Bellomont with bags of gold and silver. Thus, Kidd was killed, and all those associated with him prospered. Chapter 4: Skeletons in the Closet. The lifeless body of Captain William Kidd would join the bodies of other captured and convicted pirates left to greet those who sailed into London's port.